Hi, everyone. I'm Ed Robertson, host of TV Confidential. Thank you so much for listening to our program on PWRN, Passionate World Radio Network. If you like TV Confidential or any of the other programs you hear every week on PWRN, please consider supporting this station by becoming a patron of Passionate World Radio Network through Patreon. It is easy to do. It won't cost you more than a few dollars per month. And best of all, you will help PWRN continue to educate, enlighten, and entertain our global audience of 10 million strong and growing. For more information, go to patreon.com/PWRN. That's Patreon, Patreon, patreon.com/PWRN. And thank you again for listening.
Welcome to Passionate W World, R Radio N Network, LLC, a multimedia company. Ann Arbor, Michigan, Boston, Massachusetts, Liverpool, England, Melrose, Florida, Los Angeles, California, Fullerton, California, Washington, D.C., Chicago, Illinois are one of the many broadcast homes of PWRN, a multimedia company. The world in your hands. And now, without further ado, let me present to you one of our many hosts and their programs.
Ed Robertson welcoming you to TV Confidential, radio talk show about television. David Frankham will join us in the studio during our second hour. David Frankham, star of Master of the World, Return of the Fly, Tales of Terror, the voice of Sergeant Tibbs in 101 Dalmatians, and an actor who worked steadily in television for 4 decades. David Frankham has a new project in the works, plus another that is available to the public right now. We will tell you about both and more when David Frankham joins us in our second hour. We hope you'll stay tuned for that. In the meantime, coming up later on in this hour, we will play part 2 of the conversation that began earlier this month with longtime television director Ralph Senesky. We hope you'll stay tuned for that as well. In the meantime, Tony Figueroa and Donna Allen are with us as they bring us This Week in TV History. Tony's segment, as always, is brought to us by our friends at Story Salon, Southern California's longest-running, regularly performing live storytelling ensemble. For more information, storysalon.com, facebook.com/Story Salon. You might recall that a couple of weeks ago, Tony and Donna and I were talking about the new commercial for Hardee's and Carl's Jr. that premiered recently as part of its new advertising campaign. I know there's another commercial you want to mention. We'll get to that in just a second, but as long as we're talking about television and iconic ad campaigns. And this is related because it's a story that came up within the last couple of weeks. This is life imitating art. But I know you both watched Mad Men, and in one of the last seasons, one of the story arcs had to do with the Heinz ketchup campaign that Don Draper of the fictional Sterling Cooper agency came up with. A couple of weeks ago, you guys may have seen this, the Heinz ketchup company is taking the ad campaign that Don Draper created on Mad Men, a fictional TV show, and using it for their current ad campaign.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Life imitating art.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it is
That's amazing.
That is kind of cool.
Yeah.
So a Hollywood writer scripted this ad campaign. Is that what it?
Well,
with a few twists and turns.
I hadn't even thought of that, but if I'm Matthew Weiner, I probably want to cut.
Yeah, that was my first thought. Is that, somebody's getting. I don't want to say kickback because people associate that with.
Look, we know because we watch the shows, because a lot of times during the Sunday night AMC broadcasts, if the storyline was either Mercedes-Benz or Chrysler or, in this case, Heinz, they would have a semi-faux commercial leading into the second act, to remind, which is going back to product integration.
Yeah.
To get you, it's not quite subliminal advertising, but it's a reminder. Okay, companies pay good money to work with shows to get their products into the storylines. So, but whether that would be interesting to see whether Weiner or whoever wrote the show has.
I would think there has to be something. And also remember, early Mad Men, it was Lucky Strike was one of their big clients.
Yeah. Kodak with the carousel. Yeah.
But you also saw. I remember one time, and I just thought it looked great. And a friend of ours was in that episode. They were in California, and they went to a Howard Johnson's.
Yes.
And the look that they created of that Howard Johnson's that we remember from that time period was flawless. I mean, that was, and it was a wonderful, way to show it.
I forget. Draper was in between. I don't think he was married to his second wife, but it had to do with ice cream.
Yeah.
And there was a very uncomfortable moment. I remember it was supposed to be a romantic getaway, and it turned out to be another one of those life-biting Draper in the ass moments. It was an uncomfortable ride back for Draper, as I recall.
Yeah. And the Howard Johnson's waitress, beautifully played by the wonderful character actress Lisa K. Wyatt, who was just so perfect and so dead on period-wise. And we ate at Howard Johnson's when I was growing up.
I remember that.
She was my waitress every single time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember you going to Howard Johnson's for ice cream.
Yeah.
Was also an event.
Yeah, I remember that.
I went for fried clams.
Yeah.
So,
I don't think I ever had ice cream there.
So you also had the ad campaigns on that show, but you also had them go to places that you would... Yeah. I'm sure at some point Chock full of Nuts was in that show.
Chock full of Nuts, heavily coffee.
Tell you what, we were on Mad Men. Remember Don Draper's final commercial?
I like to... Okay.
Yeah.
Now, again, we talked about this when we talked about the finale. There are a lot of people who say, okay, from that we can conclude that Don Draper made up the iconic
Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola. It's called the Hill commercial.
Yeah.
Where I like to teach the world to sing. Yeah.
Which was beautifully shot commercial, full of optimism. It was peaceful. The song played on the radio, and it was a massive success.
Yes.
And it was reflective of the time period. You had a very, we didn't use terms like diversity at that time.
No.
But that was a wonderful example.
We used peace and harmony.
We used peace and harmony and kept it company.
Yes.
But when you panned across, you saw every walk of American life.
Yeah.
No, international.
Yeah.
They were at a hillside in Spain, as I remember.
Yes.
And that was Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
Can we flash forward to the present, please?
Pepsi, it looks like Pepsi tried to do the same thing in modern times.
Something similar.
Yeah. And it did not go well. In fact, within 48 hours, they pulled the ad.
Yeah.
So this was the ad that featured...
Kendall Jenner.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And a protest.
Well,
and it's hard to talk. It's even hard for me to... Well, there were so many things going on that was hard to diffuse.
As we begin, it centers around her. She's
wearing a blonde wig.
She's wearing a blonde wig, and she's like, I don't know whether she's supposed to be Kendall Jenner or playing a New York model.
Well, she is their new spokesperson, so I think she's playing herself.
Okay, so she's playing herself, and she's doing a photo shoot. And she's sort of like isolated in the world of this photo shoot, but they're cutting into not only what appears to be like a Black Lives Matter type of protest going on in Manhattan, but there's also
the long version starts out with a cellist on top of a skyscraper playing. You also see a young Muslim woman who's a photographer.
Yes,
I say it's an African American cellist.
Yeah,
I believe he's
Or is he Hispanic?
I believe he's Asian.
Oh. Well, there's a lot of diversity.
There's a lot.
And
there are other musicians who are African American who are introduced later. And the first time I saw it when the internet started blowing up, I'm thinking, so is this about the arts bringing people together? And then it continued.
Yeah, it goes to the protest. But you're seeing like the Muslim photographer frustrated, and then she notices something's going on outside. You can see the musician noticing something's afoot, and you also have, Kendall Jenner's the model that's noticing something's happening, and there is a march. Now, all throughout this ad, there is a lot of that blue that we associate with the Pepsi can. That particular shade of blue that you see on the Pepsi can. People are wearing it. The cellist has his case. He has
yes,
and it's that same shade of blue. There's an awful lot of that playing. But you see people in the march. Everybody's young, pretty, clean, but diverse.
This was the most beautiful group of protesters I had ever seen, and the most beautiful cops I had ever seen.
Yes, looks like they came straight from Central Casting.
Yes, and then Kendall Jenner kind of there's that standoff with the protesters and the cops. And then Kendall Jenner walks up to one of the cops and hands him a Pepsi.
Yes.
And then the cop, pulls the tab and drinks the Pepsi, and all's right in the world. So she's resolved whatever.
So we can bring the world together. Pepsi brings... Oh, the only sign you can read by design, I realized after I watched it again, join the conversation. And it may have also... You can help me with this. There's another sign I could see. It was in Spanish, and I'm assuming it said the same thing.
Have to watch it again. But.
Now, we were talking about this before we started recording. Now, as we said, within a day of when we record this conversation, Pepsi not only responded to the backlash.
Yeah.
In fact, Wired had a very funny line. Said the only thing this Pepsi ad succeeded in doing was uniting the internet.
Yes.
Within the same 24-hour news cycle, Pepsi defended the commercial and then pulled it. Now, I watched the spot, and we were talking about this before we started recording. Down, I watched the spot, and you helped crystallize what the problem was for me, because I will admit I watched it. I can sort of see, okay, they're trying to do the Hilltop commercial. It's not particularly original, but, I'm thinking, okay, A for effort, but I did not recognize the uproar. But you hit the nail on the head.
I had been thinking this before I saw I was watching The View this morning, and Whoopi Goldberg actually voiced what I had been thinking, that in the boardroom, did this spot look entirely different when you were looking at storyboards? But remember what happens from, first of all, the pitch with the storyboard. Then you go out, you cast the thing, you shoot the thing, which I'm sure is diluted from the original storyboards. Then it goes to the editor.
Well, you have a focus group.
And maybe not. I mean, I'm assuming was something with as much money as these ads cost. I'm assuming there was a focus. One would assume there would be. I don't know if there was. And she said something very interesting. Perhaps you need diversity in the boardroom.
Yeah.
Not just on the screen. But there was so much going on. I mean, some people thought it was offensive to Black Lives Matter. Some people thought it was offensive to the women's protests. Some thought it was just minimalizing the importance of protests to begin with. We remember in the 60s, the hippies putting the daisies in the guns of the National Guard or the police officers. There was the young woman being arrested, which a lot of people saw that image. Kendall Jenner handing the Pepsi to the police officers mirrored that iconic image. Got a lot of people upset. Yes, it was pretty. It was perfect. It was shot well.
Yeah.
But there were a lot of messages that I think were diluted, and none of them came across, and a lot of people are calling it the worst commercial ever.
It's like they tried to do too many things.
Yeah.
Yes.
Instead of and this ties in with the Carl's Jr. Hardy spot. With the message of the Carl's Jr. Hardy spot is, let's go back to the basics. Let's go back to presenting what we do.
Yeah.
And with the Pepsi spot, it was all over the place, and it wasn't clear what the message was.
My father used to use a word all the time, and he used it in the negative sense. It was too slick.
We're taking a look at the fallout from the recent Pepsi commercial featuring Kendall Jenner, along with Tony Figueroa and Donna Allen. We'll continue our conversation in just a second. We'll also take a look at the career of Grammy Award winner Al Jarreau. All that coming up after this quick time out here on TV Confidential.
Hi, this is Lillian Caldwell, CEO of Passionate World Radio Network. Distinguish yourself from the ordinary. I want to tell you that since I started attending the courses put out by T.R. Garland for leveraging LinkedIn for speakers, authors, coaches, and service-based professionals, that PWR Network has accomplished several of its goals. 1, JV partnership. 2, JV advocates. 3, a potential writing position. 4, an invitation to collaborate with a major internet radio network. 5, 400% increase on the profiles that have connected with me and who have come to review PWRN's profile. 2 potential clients, both CEOs. And I finally recognized and found my ideal audience. I cannot thank T.R. Garland enough for his course, 12 weeks of leveraging LinkedIn for speakers, authors, coaches, and service-based professionals. And you, too, can achieve this kind of stellar accomplishment. So don't hesitate. Contact T.R. Garland today. Connect with him on LinkedIn and ask him about his course, Leveraging LinkedIn for Speakers, Authors, Coaches, and Service-Based Professionals. You won't regret it. In fact, you'll probably thank him.
Hi, this is Taylor Hicks, and you're listening to TV Confidential.
We are the lions, we are the chosen, we're gonna shine out the dark. We are the movement, this generation, you better know who we are.
Ed Roberts with a reminder that we will play part 2 of our conversation with longtime television director Ralph Senesky later on in this hour. We have to stay tuned for that. In the meantime, Tony Figueroa and Donna Allen are with us as we continue our look at the fallout from the recent Pepsi commercial starring Kendall Jenner. Tony?
When I first heard about this, it was already flashing, did Pepsi make fun of Black Lives Matter? It's like, okay, even, what am I looking here? The New York Times, Pepsi ad accused of trivializing Black Lives Matter. And I think you don't take these images that we're seeing on the news and then build a campaign around it. It does. Trivializing is nice. Mocking is maybe even more accurate.
Well,
that's how people are going to take it.
If you're going to include something like Black Lives Matter as part of your commercial, you need to understand what it is.
But I think it was just the image of a protest.
Yeah.
But people were immediately thinking Black Lives Matter or
the Women's March.
The Women's March. And as far as I would say Black Lives Matter is concerned, that organization is already upset over people saying Blue Lives Matter or All Lives Matter.
Right.
Or, when they're politicizing that, it's like, no, this is our brand, this is our organization, and when you are taking, the basic crux and then adapting it to your agenda, saying All Lives Matter, that's not the point, or Blue Lives Matter, that's not the point. This is also our brand. We worked on this, and you're stealing it. And we talked about this with Phil Cook several years ago. One of the things when you're taking actual logos and brands and adapting them to a religious message, I think it also is. When you have like Jurassic Park, but you make it Jesus's park,
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, that's not really You don't use when you're doing that in satire, like when we bought wacky packages as a child. That's one thing, or Saturday Night Live or Mad Magazine. That's one thing. But when you're trying to sell your way of life or your company and using that same tactic, it's not the same thing. That's like I say, that can be seen as disrespectful, and I don't think. I can't say that was the intention of being disrespectful or just trivializing this movement. And we have had in the last year a lot of different movements moving forward, and not really the backdrop to sell a soda pop. It isn't.
It seems to me that if Pepsi, the decision makers who pulled the ad, if they were certain that they knew what the message was and could articulate it, we'd still be running the spot. But the fact that they pulled the spot, I mean, you don't pull a spot unless it really offends a certain paying member of your demographic.
And I realize I've been doing some reading, and sure, Pepsi's sales were down, especially with the young people. So, yes, let's throw a lot of young, pretty people together.
Yeah.
Let's get a star, a spokesperson who is part of this generation. What is she, 21, 22 years old?
Yeah.
Let's throw it all out there together. And as you said, it united the Internet.
It united the Internet, and I have not seen Pepsi say in so many words it didn't work. But from what I know about how advertising companies work, that's the underlying reason why they pulled it.
And it's off the air, but lots of people are still talking about it.
Yeah, well,
is there such a thing? Is there such a thing as negative publicity or bad publicity?
You can still see it on YouTube.
Yeah,
unless they've pulled that by the time this airs.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Black Lives Matter page. I don't see any corporate sponsorship on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, they are part of the conversation, and so is the Women's March. Also, with the Women's March, I didn't see any branding or any corporate sponsorship there. What we do see oftentimes, in times like this is, boycotting certain, companies that, do not represent one's point of view. Also, sometimes you have these corporations that they feel that, you have this controversy, it does not affect, they feel that, oh, well, they'll be back to buy our stuff, or they'll be back to come see this or do this.
One of the, there were lots of posts on Twitter. Twitter blew up. Was Bernice King, the daughter of Martin Luther King, chimed in. She posted a picture of her dad being frisked by a Caucasian officer. If only Daddy would have known about the power of Pepsi. Yeah. It's funny and sad at the same time.
I saw another one where they took the Tiananmen Square photo with the tanks and just superimposed the Pepsi bottle over the one resistant gentleman there. It's people are they're doing mockery of the ad now. I'm sure Saturday Night Live will have some fun with it too.
Yeah.
But this is something we're going to look back. I think advertising classes will be covering this.
Yeah. And we may even revisit it at the end of the year when we do our year in television.
Yeah, I think we might, because this is one of those ad campaigns, like, what the hell were you thinking moments.
Ad campaign, it's gone now.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we have had...
and perhaps even the advertising agency.
Yeah. But we have had...
They should have hired Darren Stevens.
Man and Tate would have done a wonderful job.
Yes. But we have had a year of different rallies and protests and things happening with the women's movement, with the rallies that we had the day after the inauguration. 750,000 people in L.A. How many more people showed up at the Washington rally than showed up at the inauguration? Unless you believe Donald Trump saying how many numbers had there. But there were like 200 buses reserved for the inauguration and 1,200 buses reserved for the rally the next day. You have these big events. I don't think you should be using these as a backdrop to sell your stuff. It is just, I think, when was the last time we saw this type of message used in an ad? I mean, to use something that's going on that current, and I don't.
Something important.
If you're going to do it, you should make that the focus of the 3-minute film, not all this other stuff that you're cutting in and out.
I think the closest thing I would see is like during hurricane season or during an actual hurricane in some part of the country, Home Depot has shown, that they, they're driving in the path of the hurricane, not away from it, to show that they're there to help people, that they're going to be there for you. Or an insurance ad, because I remember there were some special Allstate ads. What's his name? Dennis Haysbert. That did some...
The man who should be president.
The man who should be president, yes. He did some ads that were... You could tell that they were done, pretty quickly to help the people that were in... It wasn't Katrina. It was one of the Florida... But it said, if you have a policy with Allstate, here's the number that you call. And basically... Even though it was a national ad, he said, but, it was like, these are the phone numbers you call to get a hold of us, to help us help you, and it was not the corny thing where his voice is coming out of a 4-year-old.
No.
It was, and I thought, okay, that's an effective ad, and it looked
They were good spots.
good. Yeah. But, the one of the Home Depot truck driving in the direction of the storm, when all the other cars are driving away from it, I thought, okay, that's cool. It's not exploiting the hurricane.
Right.
It's just saying, we're going to be there for you. And, and it wasn't... having been through things, here with earthquakes, and you see companies that engage in price gouging and things like that, it was kind of like, trying to establish, we are there for you, and not taking it anymore. I mean, I would say that's the only time that, you would want to take something that's happening now and make it part of your campaign. But like I said, the Dennis Hastings one was almost like a public service announcement. Here's the number you call. If you have our policy, you call this number and we will be there for you. But to kind of use that as the backdrop, I think is, like I said, what the hell were they thinking? Well, I know that's Jay Leno's line to Hugh Grant, but it still applies.
There is the sun and moon. They sing their own sweet tune. Watch them when dawn is due, sharing one space.
Tony Figueroa and Donna Allen are with us for a regular look at This Week in TV History. We'll shift gears now and continue our look at notable music, film, and TV icons who passed away earlier in 2017, and particularly focus on their contributions to television. Donna, one such icon who recently left us is an artist that you have always admired.
Well, something that was rather personal to me. We lost a singer who did make his mark on television. That would be Al Jarreau.
Al Jarreau, who most of us think of as the man who gave us the theme to Moonlighting.
Yes, which was iconic, a Grammy-nominated theme song. I discovered him like in the early 80s. I just thought he had the sexiest voice. I loved his music. And then when he came to Moonlighting, which would be 1985, to open that song, Moonlighting was sophisticated. It was smart. And his voice just was the perfect opening to that show.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like you get a singer of his caliber to do the theme song of a network TV show.
And I don't know. I think theme songs, let's see, that was 85, but theme songs were still there, but they were on their way out.
Yeah. But not only did it prove to be one of the most iconic themes of the 80s in particular, but I believe it charted.
Yes.
Yeah, it charted. It did very well, the full-length version. And people forget, within a couple of years of Moonlighting, he did the theme of another ABC show called Murphy's Law with George Segal. And I think the actress who played his opposite was an Asian American actress named Maggie Hahn. And Maggie Hahn was basically the Lucy Liu of the late 80s. In that, I mean, if you remember Lucy Liu when she first came onto the scene with Ally McBeal, she played sort of the snarky, wisecracking subordinate. Well, that was that character was basically the same character that Maggie Hahn played in George. I mean, George Segal was sort of like a 40s noirish L.A. private eye in the 80s, who was sort of out of his element, and she was his sidekick, but she was the one who was pretty much bailing him out of trouble every week. And part of the tension was that he was hoping there would be a romance fly, but she knew that her job was just to keep him out of trouble, and to save him from herself. So the show only went less than a season, partially because ABC put it on Saturday nights, which shows you how much they believed in the show. But Michael Gleason produced it. Lee Goldberg wrote for it, and he may have also produced it. And several episodes are available either on YouTube or Dailymotion. It's worth checking out. It's a lot of fun. And Al Jarreau not only sang the opening theme to Murphy's Law, he worked it into his nightclub act.
It's too right. So something must be wrong. It's a bottle that's gone break. Says Murphy's Law.
There are clips of Al Jarreau within the last couple of years performing Murphy's Law. It's a great song.
Huh.
So he also was one of the performers in USA for Africa singing We Are the World.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, he sang that. And, he sang We Must Lend a Helping Hand.
Mm-hmm.
So the comic relief. He was very early on Saturday Night Live as a musical guest when Peter Boyle hosted. So that was the 13th episode. So
okay.
Yeah, so he was...
I have that. I have the first season.
Yeah, somebody said he was the acrobat of scat.
Okay.
I believe that.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. And I think of scat, I think Louis Prima, Scatman Crothers,
Mel Torme.
I was trying to
but you listen to his jazz albums. My God, the man was amazing. Perfect pitch.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was, we should mention Story Salon. One of our regular storytellers, Julio Martinez, was his guitarist.
When they started out together, it was Jarreau and Martinez worked together. When Al was, it was a guitar.
He's the dude who wears the fedora.
He wears the fedora, yeah. And he even told us
he's very soft spoken.
Yes.
Very soft spoken, has a lot of great stories.
But he has a lot of presence.
Yes, talented musician, talented author, talented storyteller, and he is the host of...
He is, KPFK. He has an entertainment show. I'm trying to think of the name of it. And he told a story about Al Jarreau. He was on The Tonight Show, and the band started playing in a different key, and he adapted to it because Al could not read music. And so, Julio, he would call up Julio. Julio would say, tell him this and this and this, as far as making those arrangements. And they played a song that was not in his key, and he adapted to it. So he was very...
That says a lot about him.
Yeah. He was able to do that.
As an artist and as a person. Because, there are a lot of people who would have a cow, and say, no, I can't do this, and they would chew out the musicians, and there are those who say, okay, let's just go with it. Yeah. And that just speaks to his skill as a performer. And
just so I get this right, Julio Martinez, currently the host of Arts in Review with Julio Martinez, KPFK. He is also a theater critic, an arts and entertainment feature writer.
And he's a great storyteller. When his book comes out, he should be on our program.
He should be.
Yes. He definitely should be. And he has quite a few Al Jarreau stories from different aspects, different angles of life, being on the road. They did all the Playboy clubs. I mean,
when the Playboy Club was the Playboy Club.
Playboy Club.
Yeah, the high 60s and 70s, yeah.
So he had a lot of great stories there. He's had a couple of Al Jarreau stories since Al Jarreau's passing as well. But just, wonderful, wonderful stories. And I'm trying to think of a few. Yeah, he appeared as himself on Days of Our Lives in a very big storyline in the 80s. So it was amazing. You listen to his songs. We're in this love together.
Right.
And just imagine that. I'm visualizing the music video for that, where he is walking in a cartoon. Right? And it's kind of like the old Looney Tunes where every object in a kitchen is alive.
Huh.
Right? So he is walking through, and so you kind of think of the old Max Fleischer type cartoons like with Betty Boop where, every appliance was a living entity. And he's walking through, he's saying good morning to everything. And this is at a time of MTV where you normally wouldn't see a jazz performer on MTV, let alone and this is controversial, other than Michael Jackson, he was one of the few people of color on MTV at the time. And, he's there doing they're not trying to change him to fit the MTV image.
He's not trying to do anything edgy. He's being Al Jarreau.
He's being Al Jarreau. He is, obviously walking in front of a green screen, and they have this, and this is before Roger Rabbit, by the way. But, just walking through this cartoon and singing about what a beautiful morning it is. And it is... it's just, and it's one of those songs, you hear it, you feel good.
No, you feel good, and if we were to play word association, I would say Al Jarreau Joy, because that always comes across in his music and in his performances.
Yeah, and again, one of those people, you throw out his name, a smile comes on your face. It's just, he was just that type of individual. And I'm sure we're going to, as the year goes on, we're going to hear more of his work.
Absolutely.
And talk about more and more of him.
Childtelevision.blogspot.com, childtelevision.blogspot.com, also storysalon.com, www.storysalon.com. Donna is the author of a 4-book series, the 4th volume of which is called
Fall Again Reunion.
Fall Again Reunion. You can read about all 4 volumes of the Fall Again series by going to fallagainseries.com. Tony and Donna, we'll see you both next time.
Next time.
We'll play part 2 of our conversation with Ralph Senesky here on TV Confidential.
Hi, this is Lillian Caldwell, CEO of Passionate World Radio Network. Distinguish yourself from the ordinary. I want to tell you that since I started attending the courses put out by T.R. Garland for leveraging LinkedIn for speakers, authors, coaches, and service-based professionals, that PWR Network has accomplished several of its goals. 1, JV partnership. 2, JV advocates. 3, a potential writing position. 4, an invitation to collaborate with a major internet radio network. 5, 400% increase on the profiles that have connected with me and who have come to review PWRN's profile. 2 potential clients, both CEOs. And I finally recognized and found my ideal audience. I cannot thank T.R. Garland enough for his course, 12 weeks of leveraging LinkedIn for speakers, authors, coaches, and service-based professionals. And you, too, can achieve this kind of stellar accomplishment. So don't hesitate. Contact T.R. Garland today. Connect with him on LinkedIn and ask him about his course, Leveraging LinkedIn for Speakers, Authors, Coaches, and Service-Based Professionals. You won't regret it. In fact, you'll probably thank him.
Hi, this is Ed Asner, and you're listening to TV Confidential.
Ed Roberts with a reminder that David Frankham will join us in the studio at the top of the hour. He'll join us for that. In the meantime, our guest this hour is Ralph Senesky. After graduating from the Pasadena Playhouse School of Theater, Ralph began his career directing regional theater and summer stock productions before moving into network television, first as a production supervisor on Playhouse 90, and then as an assistant producer and later director of episodes of Dr. Kildare. Dr. Kildare led Ralph to a directing assignment on The Twilight Zone, which in turn paved the way for a long career as a television director that included work on such popular series as The Paper Chase, Dynasty, Heart to Heart, The Waltons, 8 is Enough, The Rookies, Barnaby Jones, The FBI, The Fugitive, The Partridge Family, The Courtship of Eddie's Father, Route 66, Naked City, and the original Star Trek. Ralph Senesky is also an active blogger who has shared many great stories about his experiences in network television. You can read about them at Ralph's Cinema Trek at Senesky.com. We were talking about this a little bit before we started recording, Ralph. Now, today, if someone listening to us and who visits your website and is enamored, because the great thing about what you do at Senesky.com is you not only have detailed recollections of your working on this show or that show, this episode, that episode, but you've got clips that illustrate each scene that you're talking about. So potentially a film student who might discover your blogs and become interested in either working in film or working in television, if they want to be a director, they would go to film school. Now, when you started, there were no film schools per se. You learned by doing.
I went to school, but I went to school to learn how to direct for theater.
Which, as we said, is a completely different ball of wax. And again, as to go back to that great quote, you have to sublimate the limitations of the stage in order to be a really good stage director. But
let me just add, because this is one of my things, I think that film directing starts with directing actors, and that is something very important that is not always listened to or observed today. I mean, doing the camera, that's fine, but in essence, what is happening is your story is the actors, and that's where it starts. That's the heart of it. It's more than the core. It's the very heart of the profession.
One of the reasons why you worked as often as you did when you directed television is you understood, the needs of the producer, because you had to, working in television, because television was and is the producer's medium, but you were very sensitive to actors. You understood what they needed to do as actors, but they understood what you needed. More often than not, they understood what you needed of them as a director.
And you have words on the page, and it's going to be the actors that are going to say them. They need to move around, and then after all that is done, that's when you work out how you're going to photograph them so that what they're doing reaches the screen in its most effective form.
You mentioned your training was as a stage director. Well, I know from speaking to actors who work on stage, they revel in the opportunity to rehearse, which you can do, which the theater allows that. Working in television, particularly back in the 60s and 70s, you didn't always have that opportunity. But
except I did.
Yes, you did. I mean, you
didn't get to rehearse the whole play, the whole script from beginning to end for several days. But, I mean, I've heard directors say that, well, there's no time to rehearse. Every scene was rehearsed before the cameraman received his instructions of how I wanted it, the shot I wanted. And many times, while they were lighting, the actors and I would be off in a corner still rehearsing. So there was time to rehearse.
Well, not only was there time to rehearse, it shows what a smart, well-prepared director you were and are, because you took advantage of the time that you had with your actors during the limited time you had with them.
True. I like to think that. And I'm glad you said it, so I wouldn't have to.
Yes. The other thing, I mean, I read this somewhere on Ralph's Cinema Trek at Senesky.com, Ralph. I don't remember exactly where, but you talk about it's important for a director to keep what you call an aesthetic distance from the work, which is, meaning your job is to direct and to deliver the best performance you can out of the actors you're working with, and capture the vision of the script and bring it to life as best you can, but not get too showy, and call attention to the fact, I directed this. I mean, more often than not, you did that.
It goes even beyond that. Aesthetic distance, that was something I learned at the Pasadena Playhouse many years ago. And it's something that's a term that has disappeared from our theatrical dialogue. But aesthetic distance is more than what you said. When you're directing a scene, you want it to capture the audience and involve them so that they are with you, and their whole focus and attention is with you, and they're involved in the story. You don't want to do anything that becomes so blatant. In other words, what we see today where you see a knife going into a body and blood spurting out, that's jarring. That jars the audience out of their connection to the story. That's what you don't want to do, and that's what aesthetic distance refers to. It's what Hitchcock did so brilliantly in Psycho, in the shower scene.
Yeah.
He did that, and that's a perfect example of a director using aesthetic distance. He wanted the audience to be involved in the full horror, but he didn't want to do it so strongly that they would have to avert their eyes from the screen.
Yeah, I mean, it draws the audience in, but it leaves just enough to the imagination and again, that's triggering the reaction, which is the goal of any storyteller, whether you're a writer or whether you're a director, and a director is a storyteller. For the most part, that is missing today, particularly with certain type of genre movies, horror movies that you're talking about.
Yes, I never see that term used, and it's really something that is not observed. I'm thinking back again to an FBI episode. It was one with Jerry O'Loughlin. It was the one we did that was kind of a rip-off of Wages of Fear, the French film. And there was a scene where a man was going to be shot, cold-bloodedly shot.
Mm-hmm.
And to shoot cold-bloodedly on television was a no-no. I mean, you blast him with a few feet from him, and you get a little spot of blood about the size of a dime. Mm-hmm. And that, to me, was unrealistic. But you couldn't do the other, but I didn't want to do the other. So when I got right up to the place where you knew he was going to be shot, I cut away to a third character who was there to see it, and he walked into the barn, and I stayed on his face when the gunshot went off.
Yeah, and cinematically, the audience is able to make that intuitive leap, and they know what happened, and again, that leaves enough to the imagination.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, and actually, it's something that maybe most members of an audience might do if that was going to happen, that they would turn away. But that's aesthetic distance, and I don't see too much of it used today, but I do see a lot of it back in the old days of film, partly because of censorship they had to, but also because the artistic integrity back then was a little higher.
Yeah, just because we can show gore on screen or on even on network television today doesn't mean we should,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, today there are no boundaries.
Yes.
What you can and cannot show on television.
Yeah.
There just are no boundaries anymore.
Well, that is very much that is a subject for another conversation. We're talking to Ralph Senesky, longtime member of the Directors Guild of America and a man whose work as a television director stretches from The Twilight Zone to multiple episodes of some of the most popular drama and comedy series of the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Ralph shares many stories about his experiences in network television on his excellent blog page, which you can find at Ralph's Cinema Trek at Senesky.com. Before we leave the subject of the FBI, there's one of the early shows that you did. I'm thinking of the one with J.D. Cannon. You did a very stylistic
shot. The second one.
Okay, the second one you did. He's making a phone call. I mean, you shoot it from the point of view of inside the phone booth, and it's, for fans of the FBI, it's a very famous shot because it's as if somehow you got the camera inside the phone booth and right behind the old-fashioned phone dial.
Wait, then you're on the wrong show. That show was called The Escape, and that was Roy Thinnis.
Well, you did it with Roy, and you did it with J.D.
I don't remember with J.D., but I know that with Roy, it was a blown-up phone dial.
Yeah, as if to simulate as if you were inside the phone booth.
I may have done something similar with J.D., but I never had that big phone dial then. Because I know the first time I did that was Billy Spencer, who knew about that prop and told me about it, so we used it. So the show with J.D. Cannon was the season before. It was one of the 3 I did the year before, and then the one with Roy, that was the first one of the 8 that I did in the second season of the FBI.
Right, when you were one of the show's regular directors that season. And as it happens, Roy Thinnis was in that episode, as was an actress that you've worked with many, 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 many times over the years, Marlon Mason.
Yes. And I'm still in touch with her. She lives up in Oregon. She comes to visit, and we're in constant touch.
In fact, you recently made a film together a couple of years ago. You directed it, and Marlon wrote the script, The Right Regrets.
Yes, 4 years ago, as a matter of fact.
Yes.
4 years ago right now, we were planning to start. We shot it in early April of 2013. And we shot it right here on the Monterey Peninsula, part of it in Carmel, part of it down in Carmel Highlands, part of it in Salinas, part of it in Pacific Grove, and part of it in Monterey. We shot it all over the place. 9 days.
9 days, which is a lot of time for a short film, but again, you could do that now, and this way you could devote the time to get it right and tell the story you want to tell without any sort of restrictions. And of course, that's a great thing about being an independent producer, is that you set your own limitations and restrictions.
And then because I did not have a professional crew, I had a bunch of kids. As I've said, I don't think any of them were 30 years old. That was a great experience because, and we were we shot it digitally, which I'd never done before, and they were just great. I mean, there wasn't anything I asked them to do, and I was asking for things as I was used to it, visually for what I wanted, and they were getting it done. I mean, we didn't have a crab dolly. We had some sort of, it was like Tinker Toy time. And they just never said no, and they ended up doing it. And the show can be seen, The Right Regrets. You can see it today on YouTube. It's
on YouTube, and the backstory of The Right Regrets, directed by Ralph Senesky and written by Marlon Mason. The backstory of The Right Regrets is available on Ralph's excellent blog page, Ralph's Cinematrek at Senesky.com. Ralph, we're running out of time for now, but it is always a pleasure to talk to you. I hope we'll have another conversation later this year on TV Confidential.
By the time we do it, I'll probably have reached my 100.
I think we'll have you back on before then. David Frankham will join us when we come back for hour number 2 of TV Confidential. Stay with us.
Hi, this is Lillian Caldwell, CEO of Passionate World Radio Network. Distinguish yourself from the ordinary. I want to tell you that since I started attending the courses put out by T.R. Garland for leveraging LinkedIn for speakers, authors, coaches, and service-based professionals, that PWR Network has accomplished several of its goals. 1, JV partnership. 2, JV advocates. 3, a potential writing position. 4, an invitation to collaborate with a major internet radio network. 5, 400% increase on the profiles that have connected with me and who have come to review PWRN's profile. 2 potential clients, both CEOs. And I finally recognized and found my ideal audience. I cannot thank T.R. Garland enough for his course, 12 weeks of leveraging LinkedIn for speakers, authors, coaches, and service-based professionals. And you, too, can achieve this kind of stellar accomplishment. So don't hesitate. Contact T.R. Garland today. Connect with him on LinkedIn and ask him about his course, Leveraging LinkedIn for Speakers, Authors, Coaches, and Service-Based Professionals. You won't regret it. In fact, you'll probably thank him.
Hello, this is Eric Braden. You're listening to TV Confidential. Ooh.
Robertson, welcoming you back to TV Confidential radio talk show about television, and is happy to welcome back our friend David Frankham. David Frankham, prolific film and TV actor. David has appeared in dozens.
Oh my gosh.
Dozens.
Yes, I guess.
Dozens of films and probably several hundred TV episodes throughout his long career as an actor. David, of course, began his career as a radio broadcaster, and so he's perfectly at home in front of a microphone.
Just sit me in front of a mic. I love it.
Plus, for a while, David also dabbled in print journalism while he was acting. We'll talk about that. David just turned 91 within the last couple of weeks, but that has not stopped him. He has several things going on at the moment, which we'll talk about and more. And just first, David Frankham, welcome back to TV Confidential.
Oh, thanks, Ed. Good to see you again and to be with your listeners again.
Also with us is our friend, David's friend, Jonathan Dixon, actor, stage actor, voice artist.
And some TV and movies, as much as I can get.
Yes. Jonathan also helped, if I understand correctly, he helped David put together his wonderful memoir, which one is David, which talks about David's vast career, both in radio and television and film, and as well as some of the many friendships that he met, people he met along the way, and people who are still very dear friends. Which one is David is available through our friends at Bear Manor Media. David happens to be in town for a few days. Very busy week. We'll talk about some of the things that you've been up to, but we were talking about this before we started recording. This trip has sort of been like an old school week in that you've met some new friends, yes, but you've also recreated it with some old friends.
Yes, some 22-year-old new friends and 93 or 4-year-old old ones. Yes, so every day has been a high. There have been no lows. The energy, the extraordinary energy from Cal Arts, where this young guy has asked me to come in this week to record for him, is just amazing. Nobody there, I think, is over 21 or 22. The place is packed with people of ambition and talent. Just so exciting to be part of that for, I think it was Monday afternoon. Yeah, that was a very exciting day for me.
And that young guy is Ben
Wicke, yeah. And he has written and is directing, I'll try to get this right, a stop-motion puppet animated take on the classic The House of the Seven Gables. And so he asked me to come in and narrate the story, I guess. So there were 5 pages, and I thought, well, it's been a few years since I've memorized anything. So I took a deep breath, and luckily, I think on Monday it went well, and I think Ben actually said, I'm astounded you didn't have to look at the script. So I guess I've still got a little bit of memory going up here.
Well, the astounding thing that David's too modest to tell you is that we were scheduled to have the studio from 1 to 4, so we could have 3 hours to go over it. We got in a little early, and David amazed us all by reeling off pages and pages of this beautiful dialogue from memory, and we finished 5 minutes before we were scheduled to start.
So you pretty much got everything on one take.
Yeah, I did, yes.
We did a few safety takes.
But then after that, though, we went through it. He wanted to highlight a little, here and there. He's a very fine young director. I believe that when he graduates next year, he's going to take off like a rocket in the field of animation. Brilliant young man.
You can look up some of his stuff on YouTube. Ben Wiki, Wickey, like a film he did on Ray Bradbury's short story, The Homecoming, with Ray Bradbury's daughter, is one of the best adaptations I've seen.
So that was a great start to our week, really.
And I understand the House of Seven Gables project. And you correct me if I'm wrong. I understand this sort of came about because of Facebook and social media?
That's right.
Exactly.
A year ago, Jonathan called me into his office and said, look, it was my birthday, the 16th of February last year, and there was a montage of almost everything I had ever done. Some things I'd completely forgotten about from 1957, and it was by this young fellow, Ben Wiki. I knew that Ben was a Facebook friend, but I'd not really connected with him. And I was absolutely astounded. So, of course, I emailed him and said, I'm floored by this wonderful surprise on my birthday. So from then on, we emailed each other back and forth. Then he did say on an email he was doing this House of the Seven Gables project, and he would like me to narrate it.
And that is also because he's styling it after the AIP Edgar Allan Poe pictures that David did back in the 60s. So
he's based it on my character in Tales of Terror. We had a painting, I guess we didn't bring to show you, Ed, that looks just like I did then. And, quite amazing to see myself now as an old man in character for this terrific project.
I'm trying to think. It's almost who's the very famous caricature artist?
Hirschfeld.
Yes, there's a very Al Hirschfeld vibe to this caricature, and this is what your puppet looks like in the stop action. If go to David's Facebook page, facebook.com/David Frankham, and David posted the image that his puppet will look like in the full final. House of the stop-action animated House of Seven Gables, which will come later in 2017 or early 2018 if all goes well.
He'll have it finished, he thinks, in about a year, and we are already invited to the premiere taken in Massachusetts at the House of the Seven Gables.
There you go. But in the meantime, you can see what David's character will look like. He's got the bulbous eyes.
Sort of a dour expression.
Very much so.
Humbug,
which is the opposite of who David is in real life.
Oh, Ed.
Yes. I know what I wanted to ask you. Now, we're talking a little bit about how it had been a while since you had done any sort of memorizing.
A long while, Ed, yes. I retired from Hollywood, anyway, in 1978. I've done a few little things locally up there in Santa Fe, New Mexico since then, but no, I had nothing to memorize since 1978, really.
But for something like this, I mean, where you're working off of a script, so you don't have to memorize as if you were appearing in front of the camera.
That's right.
But at the same time, whether you're just starting off as an actor or whether you've been doing it as for pretty much all of your life, as you've been doing it, David, it still takes a while for you to find your footing.
Oh, yes. It took a while to memorize, quite honestly. And then I would have it, and just as I was going to sleep each night, I'd start running it, and then I'd forget 4 important words, and I'd have to put the light on, get up, and look at it again. So that went on for quite a few weeks before I actually showed up with it totally memorized last Monday.
All right. So you worked on it. You worked on it, on the side.
That's right. That's right.
All right.
5 pages.
Okay.
Of it. Yeah.
How would that compare to some of the other? I mean, you've done theater before, so I mean, is that?
I have to tell you, the only theater I ever did was just a few blocks from here, in June of 1960, and that was Somerset Maugham's The Circle at the Pasadena Playhouse with Rachel Ames. No theater before that or after it.
Okay, but still, I mean, the point I was getting at with theater versus film and television, theater allows you an opportunity to rehearse and immerse yourself in the character.
Of course, yes. 3 weeks, I remember, of rehearsal before we opened at the Pasadena Playhouse. Lots of time to figure out nuances, Yeah, indeed, yes. Yeah, theater's a luxury compared to the speed of television or movies, yeah.
And occasionally, if you happen to work with a director in television who comes from the theater, such as our mutual friend Ralph Senesky. And I know this from Ralph, both from our previous conversations and just from talking to Ralph.
Yeah.
I know that Ralph, he brought a theater-like approach to television. That he to the extent he could, he gave his actors the opportunity to rehearse.
He gave them space.
Yes.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
And we're in a good space. We're talking with our friend David Frankham. David is in Los Angeles, where he just did a principal recording, shall we say?
Yes.
For the upcoming stop-action animation film version of House of the Seven Gables, directed by Ben Wiki. The film is, if all goes well, it will open in 2018. Jonathan Dixon is also with us. Jonathan will be recording. I understand Jonathan will be recording a part for the House of the Seven Gables.
Well, it turns out Ben asked me to do the younger version of David's character, so I'm going to have to ask him to send me whatever David recorded.
And Ed is not even written yet.
Really?
Yeah. Well, he's got his draft, but he was so focused on just having 3 hours for David, and then, of course, we finished in negative time, and he didn't have anything for me to do yet. So I'm going to ask him to send me everything David did so I could repeat it with the same cadences.
Well, that's true. That's true. Because that kind of touches on what I was going to ask you. Because I would think, okay, you're going to assume a character, but it's a character based on, at least the portrayal is based on the portrayal of someone that you know very well.
Yeah.
But you bring up a different point. In order to be true and consistent with the character that David created in his thing, you have to sort of match his cadence, and that's
right. So I'm going to try to have him send me that so I can, for the next, I guess, several months, listen to what David did and say the lines along with him, and then try to sort of move that character backward and de-age those cadences and inflections a little bit. And
there are exactly 40 years difference between us. And
I've seen a lot of David's old performances, so maybe I can try to borrow from those too.
Well, no, I mean, in fact, we were over lunch. We were talking about, one way or another, you've watched some of David's prior work on film or television. Now, some actors, they don't like to watch themselves on film. I suppose you're not one of them because you have been watching yourself on film.
I criticize myself a lot. There are things that I just cringe at. I can't mention them specifically because I've forgotten.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm really quite pleased. I remember, for instance, at the screening of 10 Who Dared, a Western for Disney. The screening was hosted at the studio by Walt Disney. And he had promised us all and our friends and families a chili spread afterwards. And so the picture came on. I hadn't seen it. I was really embarrassed by my performance. My agent was with me, and I said to her, I'm leaving. And she said, you can't. Walt Disney is sitting about 4 rows back. You can't insult. This is his studio. You can't walk out. Well, I did. I'm ashamed to say I just hated that so much. Hopefully he thought I went to the restroom and whatever. I don't know. I got in my car and went home. I've seen it a couple of times since then, and it's not as bad as I thought it was that night with Mr. Disney watching it too. But it wasn't good. And so there are times that I just think, just one more take would have made that better. I would have felt better about it.
And it's a sign of how actors can't really be objective about their own work, because we look at that same performance and I think, that's really good. And David says, well, I was supposed to be doing Shakespearean dialogue, and I couldn't. And they should have gotten Richard Burton. And I said, but no, your character isn't a great Shakespearean actor. He's sort of a drunken oaf who wouldn't do it well. So
he's right.
We can't see it the same way. But
but at the same time, it's point of pride, because you always want to give the best performance you can.
Of course you do.
Given the given the confines of time and space and medium, what you're doing with film, with television, particularly, you have to work fast, especially back then.
Yes.
We're talking to longtime film and television actor David Frankham. We'll take a quick time out, then we'll continue our conversation with David here on TV Confidential.
Hi, this is Lillian Caldwell, CEO of Passionate World Radio Network. Distinguish yourself from the ordinary. I want to tell you that since I started attending the courses put out by T.R. Garland for leveraging LinkedIn for speakers, authors, coaches, and service-based professionals, that PWR Network has accomplished several of its goals. 1, JV partnership. 2, JV advocates. 3, a potential writing position. 4, an invitation to collaborate with a major internet radio network. 5, 400% increase on the profiles that have connected with me and who have come to review PWRN's profile. 2 potential clients, both CEOs. And I finally recognized and found my ideal audience. I cannot thank T.R. Garland enough for his course, 12 weeks of leveraging LinkedIn for speakers, authors, coaches, and service-based professionals. And you, too, can achieve this kind of stellar accomplishment. So don't hesitate. Contact T.R. Garland today. Connect with him on LinkedIn and ask him about his course, Leveraging LinkedIn for Speakers, Authors, Coaches, and Service-Based Professionals. You won't regret it. In fact, you'll probably thank him.
Hi, this is Loretta Swit, and you're listening to TV Confidential.
Ed Robertson, along with our guest David Frankham, star of Return of the Fly, Master of the World, Tales of Terror, the voice of Sergeant Tibbs the Cat in Disney's 101 Dalmatians, and an actor who has worked with such legends as Basil Rathbone, Deborah Paget, Boris Karloff, Shirley Temple, Rock Hudson, Roger Corman, and many, many more. David shares many stories about his long career in film and television, along with a positive worldview that allowed him to make his boyhood dream come true in his memoir, Which One Was David?, which is available through BearManorMedia.com, Amazon.com, and wherever books are sold online. Also with us is actor Jonathan Dixon. Jonathan was also one of the people who helped David put together his book, Which One Was David? David, before we went to break, we were talking about how earlier in your career, you were not one who watched your own work on film and television because you tended to be critical of yourself. Now, when you watch yourself today, with the benefit of the fact that you may not have remembered seeing something that you're watching something that you may not have remembered 50 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, do you look at yourself differently, or are you still, I wish I'd done something different?
I'm not a super critical now. I must say, I look at things and think, yeah, that young guy was okay back then. Yeah, I do. On most things, I must admit. I do, because I always seem to have very fine directors who wouldn't settle for almost good, would say, take 2 or 3. Not Roger Corman. Mm-hmm. With Roger, you knew you had to get it right.
One take.
No, Vincent told me that. Vincent Price said to me, at the end of a take, I thought it was a rehearsal, and I didn't even say action. I heard Roger say, cut. I said to Vincent, was that a take? And he said, yeah. And I said, oh, my God. He said, listen, I'll give you a word of advice. If you're running in a scene and you feel you're not doing your best, as an actor, you cannot say cut. So screw it up. Say something wrong. Roger has to stop and start again. He said, I've done that several times. without telling Roger that I think the second take is a better one than the one I messed up on, So a little bit of advice for me from Vincent Price. Yeah.
One of many things you learned from Vincent.
Many. Yes, indeed. Yes.
Speaking of Vincent, and this is one of the other things that David has recently done that's now available to the public. David recently recorded commentary for Master of the World, which is part of the Vincent Price Collection number 3, 5 classics featuring Vincent Price, which are all available on Blu-ray for the very first time from our friends at Shout Factory. And if I remember correctly, Jonathan, this is we're talking about how the Seven Gables project was a result of Facebook and social media. The commentary that David recorded for Shout Factory for the Blu-ray release, that was very 2016, and that was very high tech, and you didn't have to travel for that.
No, well, that's another side, the good side of Facebook, I guess, aside from just showing pictures of your meals and things.
You can find work.
David
is nodding enthusiastically.
The way David is connected with certain people, but he had put up something about Master of the World, and one of David's Facebook fans of that said, "Oh, that movie is coming out on Shout Factory's Vincent Price Collection number 3 next year," and we said, "Really?" Because David has been talking about wanting to do a commentary for that and wishing he could.
You did a whole chapter of it on your book.
So I said, "Oh, okay." So the very next day, I looked up Shout Factory and wrote to them and said, "Well, David Frankham's here and would like to do a commentary, and we could do it right here in his living room." And the next day after that, the producer of the set said, "Oh, we'd love that. Go ahead." So we whipped it off in the next week, but we wouldn't have even known about it if not for David's Facebook fan who letting him know that it was coming out.
You're right, Ed. Yeah.
And the great thing about it is not only you're able to do it from the comfort of your home, but and this speaks to the wonder of technology today. You were able to produce a studio quality recording. I mean, I understand Shout loved it not only for the content but for the production values.
Really?
as well.
Well, that's nice to hear. But I think, we did. Yeah, and it's gotten a lot of compliments from people who are pretty picky about commentaries.
Oh, yes. Tony Baxter, who used to be an Imagineer at Disney, heard it and said, "Now that's the way a commentary ought to sound." So we took a bow for that. We didn't rehearse. We sat in front of
had a lot of notes and things.
Sure.
But...
And he said, "Let's go." And we went. We didn't have to go back and do any of it again.
When David did the personal commentary, and I tried to throw in the research part that I had done.
Yeah.
And
I had done one before with David Del Val for Tales of Terror. That was my first one, and I was quite nervous about that. But David, I'm sure you know of him, just guided me through easily, But this, of my 3 Price films, Master of the World is my favorite. So I wanted to do it justice, and I believe we did. Yeah.
And David's commentary on the Vincent Price Collection 3 is part of the Vincent Price Collection 3, which is available on Blu-ray through our friends at Shout Factory. While we're on the subject of Vincent, there are many things about the business that, and not just technical things about how to get a second take out of Roger Corman, but just how to comport yourself as an actor and enjoy yourself.
Yes.
And not get caught up in yourself as an actor.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. He just breezed along like an old Rolls Royce in those 3 movies, I learned a lot from simply observing him working. And I probably told you, I think, when we chatted 3 years before, stop me if I did, about my first experience with him. And I'd done the first scene. I was completely in awe. It was 20th Century Fox, my first movie. It was in CinemaScope, the works, So the moment I'd finished the first scene with him, and I'm looking up, I'm only 6 feet, it was then, I've shrunk, to a 6'4", brilliant actor, So the moment we'd finished, I went back to my tiny little canvas dressing room, and I'm going over the next scene. Vincent stuck his head in the door. "What are you doing, kid?" I said, "Oh, Mr. Price, I'm just going over the next scene we have." "Oh, yeah? Well, listen, I like a social set there's a chair out there with your name on the back, so get your ass out here, kid. And that broke the ice completely.
Yeah.
You know, I was kid for the rest of my life with Vincent then. Yeah. I learned so much from him, of course.
Yeah, and it's
and one was to take it lightly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there were dramas going on, people looking at watches and so on during those 3 films. Not Vincent, you know, he was the star, mind you, and of course, whatever he said went.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a kind of an inner calm about him. I never saw him agitated or upset. Baffled only once. He said before he died to somebody, there was one actor he said, I just couldn't get to be friendly with, and that was Charles Bronson. Charles was a very shy man, a product right here from the Pasadena Playhouse. Charles Bukinski, when he did The House of Wax with Vincent in 1953, I don't think they'd worked together since then, but on Master of the World, which had the luxury of a 3-week run, Charles was shy. He just was not an outgoing, jolly guy like Henry Hull, Mary Webster, me, and Vincent. And so Vincent actually said to me, he said, the guy baffles me. And I had the temerity to say, well, Vincent, I think he's just shy. Oh, really? Oh, okay. He just wasn't a mixer. And every time we had a break, Steve McQueen was shooting on the next soundstage at the Old Republic Studios, doing Wanted Dead or Alive. Yeah. And so Charles would just shoot across to his buddy there and hang out with him until we were ready for the next scene. I liked him a lot, and he was very generous to me because there were 3 old hens in pecking order in those days. There was Hedda, Luella, and Sheila Graham.
Yes.
So Sheila came on the set.
And they all could make or break you back then.
Oh, yes. Sheila came on the set to talk to Vincent. After that, she looked around for Charles, next billing, you know. And he always said, no, give it to Dave, give it to Dave. So old Dave here got a lot of breaks because of Charles' shyness. Yes.
Charles did an FBI either first or second year. He did a couple of them, but he did one where he played an ex-convict, but it was not a typical TV ex-convict. I mean, he always has sort of a philosophical existentialist take on it, and it's I forget who. Oh, it's a young Tim McIntyre. He did a lot of scenes with Tim McIntyre, John McIntyre and Jeanette Nolan's son.
Yes.
And this was 65, 66. This is a few years after Master of the World, but he's beginning to, at least as a performer, you can tell he's beginning to come into his own and have a sense of who he is as a performer.
Dirty Dozen and so on. Yes.
But very, very interesting performance.
Oh, yeah.
Very interesting performance.
Yeah.
Before we leave the topic of Vincent, most people know him as the master of horror. Some people know him as Egghead on Batman. Having done a couple of programs and having read about your recollections of him in your wonderful book, which one is David? The word cultured comes to mind. I mean, and he was he not only had a great art collection,
a vast collection, yes.
But I believe he covered art. He was very involved with the art world. I think he wrote about it or covered it for the media at some point.
Yes, I believe he did. I'm not sure, but I'm sure he did.
I'm going off memory here. So
yeah. No, he did, of course. Yeah. He gave me a painting which would be 4 feet by 3 feet. We don't know if it was by Monet or Manet. And foolishly,
it's by a student of one of them.
Okay,
not
I treasure that. No, he liked to educate his fellow players about art without boring us about it. We knew we were
he supported
working
art schools and art museums.
Yes,
an art expert, no question about it. Yeah,
I can't imagine Vincent Price boring too many people.
No, he couldn't. I don't think he ever could. Ever. No. And my agent adored him. My agent, Maureen Oliver, this dear, wonderful lady who was my guiding force for from 56 to 78 in Hollywood, was a great fan of his. But she was a very cool, collected agent, except when she came to Vincent. And Vincent she was quite small. He would hover over her and say, "Miss Oliver, you look more charming than ever." And she'd go, "Oh, dear, oh." And she'd giggle and blush,
David Frankham is with us. David is the author of Which One Was David, which is the story of his life and career in film, television, radio, print journalism, and the many, many friendships that he met throughout his career, including his longtime friendship with Vincent Price. Which One is David is available wherever books are sold online through Bear Manor Media. Vincent also David also contributed. If Vincent contributed audio commentary, that would be quite an accomplishment.
Hey.
David also contributed audio commentary to the Vincent Price Collection 3. He did commentary. His commentary on Master of the World is one of the special features available on the Vincent Price Collection 3, which is available on Blu-ray for the very first time through our friends at Shout Factory. And David is in town for a few days, and we're very, very happy that he made time to spend some time with us here on our program. Jonathan Dixon is also with us. Jonathan also contributed to Which One Was David. We were talking about this before we started recording. In fact, we may have even mentioned this at the beginning of our conversation. You met some new friends,
yes.
Such as Ben Wicki, as a result of this trip out here. But you reconnected with people that you hadn't seen in a while, but you'd worked with.
Oh, yeah. Well, Rachel, dear Rachel Ames, with whom I did The Circle, the play at Pasadena Playhouse.
Yes, directed by our friend Ralph Senesky.
And Barbara Collentine, who is the widow of
Richard Bull from Little House on the Prairie.
Little House on the Prairie. And Bobby, as we all know and adore her, is in pretty good shape. She's had a stroke, but it hasn't affected her memory or her speech. And she has always had a wonderfully droll sense of humor. So sitting with her, I had lunch and then dinner with her for a couple of nights during this hectic week here in Los Angeles. And she's an inspiration with the patience she has. She said, "I know I can't walk anymore, but hell, I can still think and talk." She inspires me. She really does. So that was, seeing her actually a day after we'd had this incredible stimulation of 22-year-old Ben Wicki was a marvelous contrast. And Rachel, of course, is up in years, as I am too.
Bobby surprised you by saying, "We're going to have a special guest for dinner tonight," and it was Rachel Ames, who David hasn't seen.
Yeah.
Probably since 1960.
One thing I do at 91 is cry quite a bit when I'm happy. And so tears all over the place when Rachel Ames walked in. And a terrific actor, Wright King, with whom I'd done King Rat, was sitting at the next table in the beautiful dining room out at the Motion Picture Country Home. So that was exciting, too. So in no time at all, we were the only people left in the dining room. Everybody else had eaten and gone. So that was quite exciting. Yesterday, we went down to Venice to meet two brilliant filmmakers. They're twins, and their names are Adam and Nathan Freise, the Freise brothers. They are now working in affiliation with
Ridley
Scott's organization.
Division.
Yeah, they're quite brilliant young filmmakers in their mid-30s, I think. And Jonathan has made a film of them already. So once again, I'm listening to these young people. Hollywood is their future, and they are so brilliant. So that was quite exciting. Then, at the end of the day, yesterday, in came Tom Hart. Tom Hart wrote the TV series 101 Dalmatians. So he has Disney coming out of his pores, So before we knew it, almost 3 hours went by last night at the hotel just talking with Tom. So I'm spending my days in this kind of this whirlpool of young people with a future ahead of them, old people full of wonderful stories of their careers out here. It still is a very exciting week for me.
It's in a lot of ways, it's like maybe not passing the torch, but
well, yes,
the fact that young filmmakers are reaching out to you and working with you, and we talked about Ben Wiki being amazed at. I shouldn't be surprised because I know you're a radio pro, and you still have radio in your blood. So the fact that you got everything in one take, that doesn't surprise me, but it amazed him. But look, you do this as long as you have. There's certain. It may be hard. It may be harder to memorize.
Yes.
But there are certain things about the work that you never forget, and it's always do your homework and be prepared.
Exactly. Every actor who's ever been given a job in television or a movie gets the script first. He or she is expected to show up on the set knowing his or her lines. There have been a few times when I've worked with older performers who said, well, I knew it when I was at home. That's no good. A director will glare and look at the watch, it's part of an actor's responsibility to be on the set, word perfect in whatever he's been learning. So that's all I did on Monday. I made sure I was word perfect.
Well, you were word perfect on Monday. You're word perfect today, as far as I'm concerned. We're talking to David Frankham, film and television actor, star of Master of the World, Return of the Fly, the voice of Major Sergeant Tibbs in 101 Dalmatians, the movie, the classic movie. A man who worked in just about every major, mostly drama, but some comedy shows throughout the golden age of television. David was pretty much worked nonstop for 4 decades.
Yes, those were the days for all of us. Actors in our 30s, and every series ran for 39 episodes. You almost had only a month off in the summer before the next season started up. There was no time to sit around hoping the phone would ring. It rang all the time for every actor I knew.
And back then, we were talking about this earlier today when we had lunch. Back then, not only because there were a lot of anthology shows, but even a lot of the episodic things you did, like for Quinn Martin, where if you did one episode of the FBI or if the casting director liked you and they would keep you in mind for either the following season of that show or because Quinn Martin had 5 or 6 shows going on in production, they would if they thought you did a good job on the FBI, they might keep you in mind later that season for The Invaders, for 12 O'Clock High, for Streets of San Francisco, whatever. But today,
that's not true anymore.
Yeah, if you do one episode of CSI, CSI is not on the air anymore. You do one episode of Scandal, that's it. You can't do another one.
I have a friend who, just a wonderful actress named Kat Sawyer. She appeared in a very small part in the first season of Breaking Bad. Because of that, she still can't audition for Better Call Saul.
Yeah.
Because it's the same world, and she appeared in this tiny part in that was way edited down in the first season of the prequel series or the previous.
And Hitchcock and The Outer Limits, you were called back if you did okay on the first.
I think the biggest contrast I've seen is we noticed this with David on Gomer Pyle. Says once he played this big tough superior officer chewing out Sergeant Carter in one episode. And then we watched another episode he appeared in where he was sort of a nerdy little private. And then I looked up the dates.
You chewed out Sergeant Carter?
Yeah.
I didn't think that was possible.
He intimidated Sergeant Carter. Then I looked.
I will have to look for that one.
Then I looked at those episodes, and they aired 2 weeks apart.
Yeah.
I loved comedy. I never got enough of it. I loved working with Jim Nabors. I never dreamt, I'm a Brit, that I would ever be an American major or captain, whatever I was, chewing out Gomer Pyle, so that, And the other one with that marvelous Buddy Ebsen. The Beverly Hillbillies. 2 episodes of those, just watching Leon Ames, watching Buddy Ebsen at work, and Irene Ryan, Granny. God, I would pinch myself and think, God, aren't I lucky to be here at this time, switching from being, I say, old chap, into being apparently a believable American character. Yeah.
I understand Buddy Ebsen was another guy who liked a loose, friendly.
Yes, indeed. Oh, yes, he did. Yeah. Yeah, that's all I can say about him. It was just a great, friendly thing to be there.
Well, you've done enough films, and you've done enough television to know, and this is true, that the lead sets the pace, whether you're a regular or whether you're a guest player.
That is true. I've done an episode of a series in which I didn't like the lead particularly, and he did indeed set the pace and to a certain extent the atmosphere on the set of that series. But that didn't happen very often. Most of the time I loved everyone I worked with.
And most of the time the leads know that if you create an environment where people want to do their best, they will not only do their best, but they will do more than their best.
Beyond.
Yeah.
Yes.
James Garner, just as an example.
Yeah.
He did that all the time, whether he did television or film, and that engenders the sort of loyalty where people lined up around the block for an opportunity to work with him, whether it's in front of the camera or behind the scenes.
Yeah. An old smoothie.
Yes.
Yeah. I didn't have the pleasure of working. I did a Maverick, but with
Roger Moore.
With who? No.
Jack Kelly.
Oh,
Jack
Kelly. Okay, you did work with Kelly.
Oh, you were the threat to Roger Moore because he was causing trouble, so they hung you over his head.
A little heartbreak here.
We're talking to longtime film and television actor David Frankham. We'll take a quick time out, then we'll continue our conversation with David here on TV Confidential.
Hi, this is Lillian Caldwell, CEO of Passionate World Radio Network. Distinguish yourself from the ordinary. I want to tell you that since I started attending the courses put out by T.R. Garland for leveraging LinkedIn for speakers, authors, coaches, and service-based professionals, that PWR Network has accomplished several of its goals. 1, JV partnership. 2, JV advocates. 3, a potential writing position. 4, an invitation to collaborate with a major internet radio network. 5, 400% increase on the profiles that have connected with me and who have come to review PWRN's profile. 2 potential clients, both CEOs. And I finally recognized and found my ideal audience. I cannot thank T.R. Garland enough for his course, 12 weeks of leveraging LinkedIn for speakers, authors, coaches, and service-based professionals. And you, too, can achieve this kind of stellar accomplishment. So don't hesitate. Contact T.R. Garland today. Connect with him on LinkedIn and ask him about his course, Leveraging LinkedIn for Speakers, Authors, Coaches, and Service-Based Professionals. You won't regret it. In fact, you'll probably thank him.
Hello, this is Tippi Hedren. You're listening to TV Confidential.
Ed Robertson, along with our guest David Frankham, star of Return of the Fly, Master of the World, Tales of Terror, the voice of Sergeant Tibbs the Cat in Disney's 101 Dalmatians, and an actor who has worked with such legends as Basil Rathbone, Deborah Paget, Boris Karloff, Shirley Temple, Rock Hudson, Roger Corman, and many, many more. David shares many stories about his long career in film and television, along with a positive worldview that allowed him to make his boyhood dream come true in his memoir, Which One Was David?, which is available through BearManorMedia.com, Amazon.com, and wherever books are sold online. Also with us is actor Jonathan Dixon. Jonathan was also one of the people who helped David put together his book, Which One Was David? David, before we went to break, we were talking about some of the many old Warner Brothers shows that you appeared in earlier in your career, and how at one point it looked like Warner Brothers might actually sign you to a contract.
I'd always dreamed of being under contract to a major studio. You know, if you're going to Hollywood, wouldn't that be the ultimate dream? So when I did I think it was my episode of Maverick, yes it was, the director, Arthur Lubin,
who did all the Francis movies.
And Phantom of the Opera.
Yes.
As you know. So I knew that Warners were going to take out an option on me. So I sweated it out for 60 days. Actually, I almost lost the part. The first morning of shooting, I was playing Captain Rory Fitzgerald, don't you? And I was my agent is Irish, and I thought, I've got the sound in my ear. Arthur Lubin took me to lunch at the break and said, "That's the worst Irish accent I've ever heard." He said, we may have to think about replacing you. And I'm thinking, but I'm under option. You can't So he did the only thing he could think of. He brought my Irish agent out. Maureen sat with me, and I just listened to her and went on the set, listened to her, and, you know, take after take, Maureen guided me into an appropriate accent. 60 days went by, and I'm climbing the walls thinking, am I going to be a Warner Brothers contract player? And she called the studio. She said, "Look, he can't stand it anymore. Will you please tell him, are you picking up the option or not?" And they said, "No, we're not." So that was the end of that. It turned out they never intended to. We were told that Roger Moore had been a little difficult. Maybe I'm making this up because I'm not sure of the facts. Maybe coming in late, maybe arguing a lot about the quality of some of the scripts. So they needed a threat. They had to be able to say to Roger, "Well, we have another British actor in mind if you don't pull yourself together." So that was the beginning and end of my possibility as a contract player at Warner Brothers.
Two things. I can verify the Roger Moore part of that story somewhat. In that, from what I recall, he was unusual in that he was not cowed easily by JL, Jack Warner.
Yes.
And Jack Warner liked to throw his weight around.
Yeah.
And actors were chattel.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And some of this was going on around the time when they negotiated the contract for Roger Moore when he took over for Jim Garner while Jim Garner's lawsuit was going on in 1960. So he was difficult in that sense, in that he was a shrewd negotiator, and he was able to avoid a 7-year. I mean, there are pros and cons to a 7-year contract.
Oh, yes, of course.
On the one hand, security.
Yes.
On the other hand, you're stuck under the same terms for 7 years.
True, yes.
And Roger was able to avoid that.
Yes. Yeah.
So, but on the other hand, this goes back to, okay, you were not a Warner Brothers, you were not under contract with Warner Brothers per se, but you worked on pretty much every Warner Brothers hour-long show of that era. So that's the next best thing. You had steady work.
Oh, I agree. There was one that had great significance for me. It was a series called The Gallant Men. Mm-hmm. Dorothy Provine, I'm not sure if she was a regular, but she was in the episode I did. And because of the part I played, which I played the title character in that episode, it was called Tommy. Mm-hmm. It was a British soldier who was having a nervous breakdown. Mm-hmm. Lovely part, and I loved every moment of it. And Eddie Rhine, R-H-I-N-E, yes, I think, was one of the Warner's casting people. Mm-hmm. Well, from that show, Eddie went to Columbia to cast King Rat. And when they got to the part of one of the soldiers in the prison of war camp has a nervous breakdown, he thought of me. So good old Warner Brothers for giving me the part of Tommy, giving me a nervous breakdown to impress Eddie Rhine with when he went to Columbia.
And the interesting thing about the character you played in King Rat, as I recall, it was basically a one. I mean, you had no lines. And
Brian Forbes, the marvelous director of King Rat, said to me, "Eddie Rhine tells me that you'll do this perfectly. There are no lines, David, so I can't read you. But if you want to do it, the part is yours." Well, how often do you get handed a role like that? You know, so yeah, there were no lines.
And it was supposed to be like a one-day.
That's right.
A one-day part. It turned out to be a 6-week job because of circumstances involving John Mills.
That's much longer than 6 weeks, though, Ed. Yes, I had a 3-week guarantee. And during that time, John Mills was to come over from a film he just finished in England, and he was involved in the scene in which I had the nervous breakdown. Well, there was some hang-up on the film he was finishing. I'm not exaggerating. Several months went by, and I'm on salary, waiting to have my silent breakdown. And originally, I would join the cast at the studio. We'd drive out to somewhere in the San Fernando Valley, where a marvelous creation of the Japanese prisoner of war camp Changi in Singapore was created. And finally, they said to me, well, we don't know when Mills is going to show up. Why don't you just sit home? So I sat home on salary.
Sit home on salary, yes.
And wouldn't you know, Maureen just loved to keep me working. And there was a marvelous part at Universal, a movie of the week about prisoners of war with David Carradine. And so I was set to do it. And I said, but Maureen, she said, no, it'll work out beautifully. Well, it didn't. The night I got my call to start the next day on the Universal Prisoner of War, I got the call, John Mills is here, we need you tomorrow. So God knows what they did to poor Maureen when she had to call. Well, I'm sorry, he can't do it after all, you know. So I thought, okay, I did my scene, it was over. Brian was wonderful. He said, take your time. I'm sitting here with John Mills, Tom Courtney, George Siegel. I think, oh, God, they're all thinking, you know, I'm prepping, you see. So I did it, and it went in one take, and off I went home. And I thought, well, I'm off the film, finally. Then the phone rang. Maureen, this was in November. Maureen rang, and she said, guess what? You're still on King Rat. Brian Forbes wants an opening panning shot of all the officers asleep in their bunks over the opening credits. And so I stayed on salary until the end of December. I could have almost built a mansion, I think, on my salary.
Yeah, I have heard of instances. I mean, I believe the technical term is holding fee.
Right.
That's right.
Where basically they pay you just to be available.
That's right. Yes.
You know, and I don't know that they still do that today, but they did that quite a bit. You know, back then, particularly if an actor had shot a pilot and the network still was still trying to figure out whether they're going to option it to series or not. But they wanted to, so they would, and again, this goes back to your agent, you know, negotiating.
Yes.
This is all worked out in the contract.
Yeah.
But they would basically pay you to remain available and not take other work that would preclude you from doing this.
That's right.
And the amazing thing is, you know, I mean, look, it's not. There are no small parts, but this was not a lead part in the movie.
Oh God, no!
So the fact that you basically had several months,
waiting to not even say a word when the moment came. Yeah,
and it's still done on a smaller scale, maybe, because on the movie War on Everyone, I was on that for a few weeks, and a couple of those weeks I was sitting at home making, you know, quite a lot of money to be sitting at home.
Yeah.
Just in case they needed to call me in right away. So it is kind of nice when that happens. That's the longest I've ever heard, though, your story.
Oh, I know. It was amazing. Yeah.
Well,
so thanks to Tommy and the
yes, thanks to Eddie Ryan
director
for casting me in the Warner Brothers Gallant Men series.
Yes, and you got to know, among other people, you got to know Wright King, who you reconnected with for the first time in 50-something years during your
trip
trip
Motion Picture Country Home this week. Yes, there he was.
It's all very circular.
Yes, all very circular. Yes,
David Frankham is with us. David shares many stories about his work on such films as King Rat and Master of the World, as well as his episodic work on Maverick and Alfred Hitchcock and Star Trek and the FBI and all the other various things that he did throughout his long career. In his excellent book, Which One is David? Which One is David? Which is available online, wherever books are sold online through our friends at Bear Manor Media. David also contributed special audio commentary for Master of the World, which is part of the Vincent Price Collection No. 3, which is available on Blu-ray for the very first time from our friends at Shout Factory.
Oh, and David, tell them about the magazine you're currently in.
Oh, yes. A few months ago, the phone rang, and somebody said, I never even heard of this magazine. It's called
Scary Monsters Magazine.
Scary Monsters Magazine.
And I thought, well, I don't
I'm
know.
holding it up to the microphone.
And so they said, we would like you to be interviewed by Dr. Gangrene. So I drew myself up to my full height and said, I have no idea who Dr. Gangrene is, but I do not. And, got very grand. And they said, no, you'll like him a lot. And so, make a long story short, we did a Skype, which I'm never thrilled about because you have to shave and comb your hair and make sure you look okay.
And you have to make sure that it doesn't buffer and freeze and
Oh,
and stuff
yes,
like
I
that.
never thought of that.
Yeah.
So anyway, this is very friendly.
I've done a few interviews on Skype. That's an issue at my end.
Well, good old Dr. Gangrene came on, who turned out to be privately Larry Underwood, and a damned good interviewer. So I actually enjoyed it, and I think they did graciously 7 pages of chat with a lot of photographs. So I have to say it's only on the stands now at Barnes & Noble until I think the 17th of this month or something.
Or you can order it through their website.
Right, and they do have back issues. It's one of those publications where all back issues are available.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
Okay,
so,
good. So very happy to do that.
So it's available. It is available for a limited time at your local Barnes & Noble, but you can also order it online at ScaryMonstersMagazine.com, ScaryMonstersMagazine.com. David is billed as Vincent Price protege.
Yes, wasn't that nice?
Yes.
And true.
Did you ask for that?
No. I didn't know. I'm even on the front cover. This is quite a literary phase of my life, I guess, because there's a book out now written by Bruce Hallenbeck about the history of American International, for whom I did Master of the World and Tales of Terror. And he was very nice and called and asked if I'd like to write the introduction to that. So I did, and I was very pleased when it came out and he gave it to me. And later this month, there's, for me, a long-awaited biography of a brilliant actor who sadly died in 1944. His name is Laird Cregar. And if you've seen The Lodger, then you know what a superb actor he was. I was 18 when I saw that. I was just absolutely consumed with his talent, and I made up my mind on the spot at 18. I've one day somehow got to do what he's doing. He had a 7-year contract with Fox. He lived for 4 of them, and he was a chameleon of an actor. You can see him totally different in every one of the Fox movies they put him in. And so the book is coming out. I don't know what it's called. Do you, Jonathan? Probably the Laird Cregar story, possibly.
Yeah, just Laird Cregar.
And it's Greg Mank who has written the book and was very kind and sent us the chapters to enjoy each time as he finished the chapter. So I can say it's a darn good book about a long-forgotten but superb actor, and he's honored me by saying that he's dedicated the book to me.
Oh, wow.
So, big
cool.
thrill.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, it's a big thrill. It's always a thrill to have you on our program, David.
Oh, Ed. Oh, thank you.
David Frankham shared many more stories about his career in film and television. We will play that part of our conversation in a few weeks here on TV Confidential. In the meantime, Which One Was David? The story of David's life and career in film and television is available wherever books are sold online through BearManorMedia.com as well as Amazon.com. The Vincent Price Collection number 3, which includes David's commentary on the film Master of the World, is available on Blu-ray for the very first time through Shout Factory, while, as David just mentioned, the interview with David in the most recent issue of Scary Monsters is available at a limited time through your local Barnes & Noble. You can also find it online at ScaryMonstersMagazine.com. We'll take a quick time out, then we'll be back with more TV Confidential right after this.
Hi, this is Lillian Caldwell, CEO of Passionate World Radio Network. Distinguish yourself from the ordinary. I want to tell you that since I started attending the courses put out by T.R. Garland for leveraging LinkedIn for speakers, authors, coaches, and service-based professionals, that PWR Network has accomplished several of its goals. 1, JV partnership. 2, JV advocates. 3, a potential writing position. 4, an invitation to collaborate with a major internet radio network. 5, 400% increase on the profiles that have connected with me and who have come to review PWRN's profile. 2 potential clients, both CEOs. And I finally recognized and found my ideal audience. I cannot thank T.R. Garland enough for his course, 12 weeks of leveraging LinkedIn for speakers, authors, coaches, and service-based professionals. And you too can achieve this kind of stellar accomplishment. So don't hesitate. Contact T.R. Garland today. Connect with him on LinkedIn and ask him about his course, Leveraging LinkedIn for Speakers, Authors, Coaches, and Service-Based Professionals. You won't regret it. In fact, you'll probably thank him.
Hi, this is Rich Little, and you're listening to TV Confidential.
This is my boss, Jonathan Hahn, a self-made millionaire. He's quite a guy. This is Mrs. H. She's gorgeous. She's one lady who knows how to take care of herself. By the way, my name is Max. I take care of both of them, which ain't easy. Because when they met, it was mad.
Ed Roberts with a reminder that the next edition of TV Confidential will premiere next week on this station at the usual time. If all goes well, our guests will include Danelle Dadigan, founder of the world-famous Hollywood Museum. We hope you'll join us for that. In the meantime, we have a few minutes left. Enough time to tell you that if you're a fan of Robert Wagner and Stephanie Powers, our friends at Shout Factory will be releasing all 5 seasons of Heart to Heart as a complete series box set beginning Tuesday, May 30th. Heart to Heart, of course, was more or less a variation of The Thin Man, tailored for Robert Wagner and Stephanie Powers, but with a little more playfulness. Created by Sidney Sheldon, the man behind The Patty Duke Show, I Dream a Genie, and such best-selling novels as Master of the Game, Heart to Heart was a smart and sexy detective drama featuring sparkling and witty dialogue, gorgeous costumes, and a mix of intrigue and adventure, all set in the world of the jet set. Heart to Heart was also one of the most successful dramas produced by Aaron Spelling. Besides featuring all 110 episodes of the original series, Heart to Heart, the complete series box set, includes such bonus features as the original pilot episode featuring audio commentary by Robert Wagner, Stephanie Powers, and director Tom Mankiewicz, plus a 20-minute original featurette called The Heart of Season 1. Heart to Heart, the complete series, comes to DVD for the very first time beginning Tuesday, May 30th from our friends at Shout Factory. And speaking of sharp and stylized, available May 16th on DVD from our friends at Entertainment One is Ice Season 1. Ice is the gritty, high-impact crime series from AT&T starring Jeremy Sisto and Donald Sutherland about the dark underbelly of the diamond trade. After the accidental death of a diamond smuggler, a prestigious diamond-dealing family suddenly finds itself under the thumb of a powerful crime boss who draws them into the dangerous world of blood diamonds despite their efforts to keep their business legitimate. Ice Season 1 features all 10 episodes on 3 discs, as well as such bonus content as cast interviews, the music video, Diamond Girl, and more. Retail price for Ice Season 1 is $40.99. Ice Season 1 is available wherever DVDs are sold beginning Tuesday, May 16th from our friends at Entertainment One. A reminder that Which One Was David is available through BearManorMedia.com, Amazon.com, and wherever books are sold online. For more information on Ralph Senesky, go to Ralph's Cinema Trek at Senesky.com. That'll do it for our program tonight, folks. Ed Robertson, on behalf of Tony Figueroa, Donna Allen, Phil Grice, and Greg Airbar, Thank you so much for listening. We will talk to you next time on TV Confidential.
Thank you for listening to Passionate World Radio Network, a multimedia company. You can listen to this program all over again at PassionateWorldRadioNetwork.com, Facebook.com/PWRN, Twitter.com/PWRN, GooglePlus.com/PWRN. Distinguish yourself from the ordinary. And remember, please keep listening.